An intern could have handled this job. So out loud, in front of my entire team, said Ryan, my new boss, a man with the emotional depth of a broken stapler. My team, 15 years of 5 a.m. wake-ups, canceled vacations, and fixing system crashes that would have been apocalyptic. And this walking tube of hair gel dare to say that I could be replaced by someone for whom the most serious decision in life is whether to heat up noodles in a microwave with a lid or an Encore. There was silence in the room. Pam could be heard tapping her acrylic nails against her mug. The Greek guy from accounting blinked as if he had just seen someone get hit by a car. I didn't say anything, just nodded, stood up, and put my pass on the table. The chair made a long creaking sound, as if it was also in shock. And I went out. No tears, no hysteriques. Just that strange silence that happens before a hurricane destroys a city. And yes, before I forget, 97% of you who are listening to this still haven't subscribed. Yes, you ignore me like Ryan ignores common sense. Click subscribe and like if you, like me, enjoy corporate fires. It helps the channel survive and keeps my small team caffeinated, so we can continue to expose industrial-scale idiocy. Okay, back to chaos. The worst part wasn't the public humiliation, but the look in Rain's eyes. It was as if he had won something, as if my dismissal was the beginning of his triumphant run. He turned to Melissa, an intern fresh out of college. Let's take a look at Lisa's workflow. Everything is simple here. Melissa almost cried. She followed me for only 2 days and still couldn't figure out which terminal was connected to the compass unit. And it's not her fault. It was meant to be that way. The system could not be understood without me. I assembled most of the modules myself during the supplier's collapse 5 years ago. There was no documentation for them. Everything was stored only in my personal offline records. This system was like a wildcat. It listened only to me. But Ryan didn't know that because he never asked. He was the kind of boss who prints buzzwords on slides and thinks that removing old code means removing the people who wrote it. He demands modernization, optimization, minimization, everything that sounds smart in the morning mirror monologue. And for him, I am the past. By the time I reached the parking lot, my phone was vibrating. 6 unread messages in team chat. Greek, what the hell just happened? Jenna, we're screwed. Melissa, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was going to. I turned off my phone, got in my old Subaru, which had more rust than paint, and just sat there. She didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She just stood motionless, with her hands on the steering wheel. It was that strange calm when the brain has already understood everything, but the body has not yet. The storm hadn't started yet, but I could feel the sky darkening. I kept this system alive longer than many people worked here. 5 years ago, when the vendor cut off support and our CTO panicked, I was the one who wrote a patch to keep us within federal regulations and stayed up until 3 a.m. making urgent updates. Nobody from above saw this. Just then, I receive a quiet call from CO. You can hold the system until we come up with something. I did it, quietly, unnoticed, like duct tape holding up a dam. But Ryan just fired that duct tape, told everyone that she was no longer needed. I went home. The windows are open. The wind tangles my hair as if I had flown through a wind tunnel. Behind me is the city horizon, like a closed chapter. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing. They would soon understand the truth. By the time Ryan handed my work over to the intern, who still keeps the password on sticky notes, the countdown was already underway. And when the timer hits 0, well, let's just say one chat in SLC and one Excel spreadsheet clearly won't be enough to save $240 million in government contracts. The ride home felt like limbo with cup holders. I didn't turn on the radio, only the noise of the road and the rare size of the air conditioner, as if even the car was holding its breath. My hands were holding the steering wheel at 10.2, as if I let go, it would tear off along with the skin. 15 years. For 15 damn years, I've been fixing this Frankenstein of a compliance system since the Bush era. Nobody wanted her, nobody understood her, but she kept the lights on, the contracts clean, and the feeders away. When I first picked it up, it was a half-broken, undocumented piece of spaghetti code, duct taped to an old server in a closet that smelled like rotten noodles and despair. They then told me, "Don't waste your time, we'll replace it soon." That was in 2010. The system outlived 5 department heads, 2 technical directors, and 1 office goldfish. And now Ryan, the corporate answer to Technobrodrome. He fired me in front of my own command because he thought my job was a boring routine. Of course, just like servicing a nuclear reactor is like just pushing buttons until someone pushes the wrong one. I pulled up to the house just as the sun disappeared behind the neighboring roofs. The neighbor mowed the lawn as if the world hadn't turned upside down. I waved at him half-heartedly. He waved back, not even realizing what had happened. When I got home, I took off my shoes and opened my laptop. I left the non-working one. It was my personal, my real terminal, the one that had copies of everything I was not supposed to take home, according to the rules. But I knew better. Too often, unexpected layoffs turn into panic calls at 2 a.m. from former bosses. Help urgently. Everything is down for us. I started working, saved all my personal logs, downloaded the Complos update, printed out the access history from the storage, and took a screenshot of the last request to revoke the admin token. Click, drag, encrypt, and then again. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was a ritual, like a soldier cleaning his rifle after leaving service. You may not have to shoot again, but let it shine in case you do. People never understood why this system worked. She lived only because I knew where she would break. I didn't just serve her, I knew her character. I understood which errors were real and which were ghosts from old modules. The system spoke to me in its own language in the code, in timings, in broken logs, and strange failures. She was ugly and ungrateful, but she was mine. At 217 minutes, the phone lit up with the familiar area code for headquarters. I let it ring. A voice message came in seconds later. I put the phone on speaker and poured myself a bourbon. Elisa, this is Claire. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Hanley. He asked for clarification regarding today's unexpected departure. He was not warned in advance. I asked you to call me back when you have time. The voice is fresh. Subtext. It looks like we just made a very expensive mistake. I put the phone on the table without touching it. Unexpected, then I thought, took a sip, and felt the oak bitterness settle under my ribs. I knew what would happen when my admin tokens expired. 36 hours after the last login, the system will go into orphan mode, a protocol I wrote myself back in 2018. It will begin rejecting synchronization keys, red flag the Complos logs, and suspend the audit log. And when that happens, the feds will come, and the system will no longer be under legal oversight, meaning every transaction with government money, even the most harmless, will become suspicious. They didn't just fire the admin, they fired the signature. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, holding the bourbon as the hard drive hummed quietly, saying goodbye. The wheel was already spinning, and there was no way to stop it. On Monday morning, Ryan walked in like he'd won a promotion no one had given him. Fresh haircut, too much eau de Lagone, and a smug gait, as if my dismissal had cleared the building of inefficiency. Well, team. He clapped his hands in the kitchenette, like a kindergarten teacher on a sugar overdose. Melissa and Jordan will handle Lisa's paperwork. It's just a trifle. Routine admin Jenna almost choked on her oatmeal from the packet. Jordan, the junior engineer who had been calling the black screen partial until now, turned pale before his eyes. He opened the browser and typed Fox Duck City into the search engine. Nothing, because I never made a public website for this system, and it was not supposed to be public. Melissa, poor thing, was already sitting hunched over someone else's computer, clicking on some interface that was completely unfamiliar to her. Sweat appeared on my forehead. There's a mistake here, writes W41. So the Costern expired, and everything collapsed here. Ryan didn't even blink. It's just hereditary noise. Fix itself. Keep working. Hereditary noise. That's what he called the software that I literally pulled out of the other world, armed only with half-collapsed vendor records and a terminal. For him, it was like a fax machine, forgotten to be turned on overnight. Only this noise knew how to bite. About 41 did not fall. He slammed the door. This error only appeared when the admin token signature did not match during a scheduled audit sync. And the only time this happened was if someone like me, the author of this emergency protocol, manually revoked their authority, which is what I did. At 8:43 a.m. at home, I logged into my secure offline console backup. For the last time, I pressed the big red button with the inscription Rivik Admin Takren. A warning popped up. Attention! Removing a token custodian will trigger an audit lock after 36 hours unless a new custodian is appointed and confirmed. I clicked yes. The screen flickered and went black. Here, it is the silent switch of death. The system still looked functional from the outside. She accepted commands, allowed me to navigate through sections, but deep down the compass check flow had already gone into a loop. The countdown has begun. Meanwhile, Jordan was Googling what Costorm meant, and I imagined him writing dress up by lunchtime. Help! Compliance Soft is giving strange errors. The boss said to ignore it. I should be worried. Ah, deal. At 2 p.m., Ryan called a meeting to check on progress. He sat at the head of the table, smiling like a man who thinks Excel is romantic. Well, is everything going smoothly? Melissa picked up the notebook. Empty. Just a sticker that said, ask about the 3-factor token and 3 bold underlines. Since breakfast, she seemed to have aged 5 years. Melissa, he drawled, his voice dripping with condescension. I can't get into the vault. The terminal keeps denying my access. Did you send a role change request through Access Point? Ryan asked. Yes, but it says that my role is missing his story Kroll's signature perfty. I don't know. What does it mean? Ryan rolled his eyes so hard I swear he could have pulled them. God, Lisa made this so complicated, Ryan muttered. We'll pass this on to the IT guys. Shouldn't we tell the lawyers? Jenna asked quietly. He laughed. Lawyers are not required to know about errors and logs. He was very wrong, because 41 was not interested in positions. He didn't care. You were a vice president, a senior synergy strategist, or someone else. The system required one thing, that the signature in the federal Complos logs matched the one in the government's database. There is no signature, no verification, no compliance with requirements, no match, no contracts. While Ryan was handing out wine like pieces of yesterday's cake, I sat on my veranda with a cup of tea, watching the sunset. My personal terminal beeped quietly inside. 1 string cadern status Ravok, Korn Dorn, Tulik Dorn 33 hours, 120 minutes, and 7 seconds. Let them press the buttons. From the outside, the system looked alive, but inside it was already an empty shell, ready to collapse. The first wave arrived on Tuesday at 7:42 a.m. CDO mark. A normally unflappable man who speaks in acronyms and keeps server-shaped anti-stress swords on his desk received an automatic notification from the sync server. SCAR number detected audit locks not fight with central registry for 23 hours. For ordinary people, this is just techno jargon, but for us, it's like the check engine light coming on while there's already a fire under the hood. This is not ignored. This is not postponed. You immediately drop everything and pray that the next letter is not from the feeders. Mark blinked, scrolled, blinked again. Hands hovered over the keyboard, ready to forward the error or delete it and flee the country. He walked through the error tree and found the source. While 41 my system, the log stopped syncing the moment my token was revoked. He opened the trace report. The system is alive, but refuses to accept synchronization commands from all backup daemons and proxies assigned after Friday. One line was repeated over and over again. Kostornader fight, signature rejected. And the icing on the cake of panic. My name was still listed on all active records. My digital signature was on the last confirmed download of the Complos. There is no new custodian. The transfer of rights has not been formalized. Nothing. Meanwhile, Claire, the same legal officer who had called me on behalf of Mr. Henley, was drinking her morning espresso and looking through the automated Complos summary. While scrolling, she came across Form 722 by quarterly chain of custody confirmation, still issued to Fox King. The deadline is today. There is no backup custodian. The risk is high. The spoon clinked. Claire picked up the phone and dialed Ryan. I'm looking at quarterly reports. She began calmly. Lisa's transfer of authority has now been completed. And Ryan was mid-sentence, gulping down coffee. Yes, that's true. Melissa will take it. Everything is under control. Lisa has old admin procedures there. Did you instruct Melissa? Claire asked again. Don't worry, we're making it easy. I have a plan to simplify the entire system for the next quarter. That's not what I asked about. I'm saying everything is under control. 6 minutes later, Mark burst into Ryan's office without knocking, laptop open. There are audit traces on the screen. Tell me that you registered the transfer from Lisa in the registry? Ryan hesitated and waved his hand. You're just escalating things. Mark pointed at the screen. We are not in sync. The federal system rejected the last 3 uploads. If this continues, we'll be shut down under Section 932. Okay, calm down. I'll ask Melissa to fix the keys too. Mark leaned closer. Cold. It's not about the keys. This is a federal authorization. You fired the only person who had the right to touch this system. She was a middle administrator. Anyone can handle it. Then explain to the lawyers why her name is still on all active records. Silence. At this time, I was sitting at home at the kitchen table in sweatpants, eating dry cereal straight from the box, and looking at the spinning loading icon on my laptop. Open the draft letter. The address was already filled in. H. Torres Gervaz Camplerns Henry Torres. My contact is in federal oversight. We have been working together for a long time. One day, he sent me a gif of a squirrel with a suitcase. When I caught the error before his office, I wrote one sentence. In accordance with protocol, please accept as an attachment the confirmation of the cancellation of the role transfer. I have attached one PDF of an official document stating that the custodian position has been vacated due to dismissal. There is no replacement. With date, digital signature, non-revocable. I clicked send. All. No threats, no lawyers. One shot. In the office, the lawyers in the compliance department did what they do best, panicking behind closed doors, pretending everything was fine. The warnings were piling up. SBU synchronizations, rejected timestamps, empty custodian field without emergency bypass. And Ryan was still drinking coffee, not even realizing that his empire was standing on shifting sand and the water was already rising. By evening, confirmation of delivery of Henry's letter arrived. Read 1636. 3 words. There was no answer. It is not needed. The system has started a countdown, and soon everything will stop. The building's environment no longer hummed, but creaked as if it had a nervous tick. People walked faster and spoke more quietly. The phones rang longer before they were answered. It was as if you could hear the servers sweating through the walls. The system was still working, but it was warning so loudly that even the blindest people could tell something was wrong. The first thing that collapsed was the bills. The procurement team attempted to formalize a routine extension of the contract for safe transportation services. According to the rules, federal services require quarterly confirmation. Nothing complicated, but the system returned an error. The custodian's signature is invalid. Empty. The application was returned 3 times and then went into the status of being reviewed. $1.4 million stuck in digital purgatory. Then the letters started coming. One of the Department of Supervision of Suppliers of the Ministry of Energy confirmed the current compliance officer. The latest logs contain and signed transmissions. Other from the Logistics Management Office. We cannot confirm the authenticity of your 3rd quarter report. The contact person has changed. The lawyers started to get nervous. The financiers are twitching. And Melissa, the poor intern turned scapegoat, was already working 12-hour days, tinkering with ghostly systems she'd never heard of a week ago. Meanwhile, Ryan put on his fake confident voice and told everyone it was just residual noise from old integrations. This phrase became his mantra. He repeated it at meetings as if it were great wisdom. Even when everything was going down the drain and the technical director mentioned the SBU checking the integrity of the archive data, Ryan replied, "We're upgrading. During the reorganization, there are SBU." When lawyers suggested that unsigned audits could trigger a mandatory investigation, he simply waved his hand, "I have calls scheduled." But the calls didn't help because no one, not Melissa, not Jordan, not the IT people, had access to the core of the compliance system. Boot 41 was sealed. The system went into defense mode, and the bureaucratic red tape tightened with each failed hack attempt. I didn't hear all this personally, and there was no need. The Greek in finance texted me around noon. "Listen, I don't want to pry, but Ryan screwed something up. People are panicking." Jenna sent me a signal a couple of hours later. "Lisa, something is wrong. Your system doesn't let anyone in. Ryan said you overprotected her, But that's weird. Did you do something? No, Jenna, I didn't do anything. I did everything. I followed protocol. I play by the rules. I just knew the rules better than those who try to replace me. Sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket I knitted during the pandemic, I watched the quiet collapse, like a TV series I'd already seen but still enjoyed. I didn't gloat. It wasn't revenge, it was peace. The kind of peace where your truth no longer requires explanation. I drank tea while the world I held together with snot and willpower began to wheeze and stagger without me. This system was old and fragile not because it was bad, but because it had worked for years only on memory and persistence. In my memory, in my persistence. Ryan never asked what exactly I was doing. I've never wondered why the average admin gets copies of internal emails between lawyers and the compliance department. Why did I have a security clearance 3 levels higher than his? Why did the system always only work when I was around? And now even the building seemed to sense that something was wrong. The elevators seemed to be sighing heavily. The printers were flashing SOS signals, and the air smelled of ozone and bad decisions. The blackout hadn't happened yet, but it was already close, like the first gust of wind before a hurricane. Drafts whispered in the cracks, papers rustled, and people pretended not to look at the sky. At 7:46 p.m., Ryan's phone rang. He was sitting on the couch in socks and a Hazel Harder t-shirt, eating mediocre pad thai from a delivery service and watching a show about startups that he understood nothing about but pretended to enjoy. The bell pulled him out of his comfort. Working line. He turned the phone over with displeasure. The purchases appeared on the screen. Ryan is Marion from purchasing. The voice is harsh, without greetings. Why are all our federal transactions frozen? Why did he blink while finishing chewing? I have 5 blocked orders. Everything related to government customers is stuck in the audit process. The system does not accept new transactions until it checks old logs. And they haven't been updated since Monday. Ryan stood up. This is weird. We sent the logs. Probably not, Marion interrupted. I already checked. WoW 41 rejects everything. We can't even see the audit trail. Okay, calm down. There must be a problem with access rights. I'll extract the logs myself. He cut off the call without letting her answer and was already logging into the Compass console from his work laptop. Fingers, greasy from food, slid across the touchpad. Access denied. Invalid authorization token. Signature chain mismatch. He frowned, tried again, same mistake. Formally, he was still the director, but that was not enough. The system had a keeper's gate tied to specific credentials. Mine. He began to knight the transfer folder of cases, which he told Melissa to sort out later. Empty. Only one transfer task table from Lisa with 4 filled cells and a large red comment is awaiting approval. Access to what has not been transferred. He called. I urgently need access to Wood 41. We've been trying since Monday, replied night technician Julia. The vault does not accept reserve tokens. What about system bypass? Lisa turned it off 2 years ago. Julia hesitated after the update from the vendor without the lawyer's consent. What do you mean turn off? She rewrote the emergency access logic. There is now only one keeper slot. It was in the Compass enhancement package. Remember the 2022 audit? She gave a whole presentation. You were copied in the letters. Ryan remained silent, already sweating. If Lisa doesn't manually reassign the token, the system will go into full lockdown mode tomorrow at 9 a.m., Julia added. For the first time since Friday, Ryan felt real fear. Not irritation, not annoyance, but the kind that goes deep into his bones. Damn, this really happens. He opened his Outlook and scrolled through dozens of internal messages asking, something's broken. He clicked new email, and in the to field, he wrote Lisa King. Urgent. Lisa, please confirm that you have officially left the company. We have a problem with the compliance system. We really need your help to resolve a few issues. He thought for a moment and clicked send. A few kilometers away, I was sitting in my kitchen, a glass of red wine, the last piece of last night's lasagna, a burning candle. The evening was quiet, like a reward after a long day. But then the laptop beeped. A new email had arrived. I saw the subject and didn't even open it. A couple of seconds later, another one arrived from Hanley, the company director. You left urgently. 5 words without a greeting or signature. I stared at the screen for a long time. The glass remained halfway to my mouth. He knew, or was beginning to guess, but I didn't answer. There was no need. Time had passed. The transfer never took place. The system held. But at exactly 9 a.m. tomorrow, this line would go dead. Thursday, 8:59 a.m. The meeting in Hall B was tense. People filed in as if they were going to a courtroom. Melissa held her cold coffee in both hands, like a talisman. Jenna was silent, looking straight ahead. Even the Greek from finance stopped joking. Ian, in an expensive blue jacket, tried to look important, shuffled papers, cleared his throat a couple of times, opened his laptop, as if that could keep the walls from falling. He was saying something about stabilizing work by the end of the week when the glass doors swung open with such a bang that everyone jumped. Henley flew in, red-faced, out of breath, without a laptop, without coffee, only with a thick blue folder in his hands. He stood in the middle of the room and barked. "Where's she?" No one moved. Ryan sat up. "Mr. Hanley, are you talking about Lisa?" "I'm talking about Lisa. Where's she?" He growled. Ryan glanced at Melissa, then back. She was involved in the restructuring. We assigned her tasks. Hanley slapped the folder on the table. The page at the top slid off with a red inscription. Federal Contract Suspension Notice. System integrity not confirmed. Jenna gasped. Melissa dropped her coffee. Henley quietly but sharply. "You restructured the only person who could maintain our compliance system. The person who, by the way, made the patch that kept $240 million in contracts from collapsing." Ryan tried to justify himself. "We thought the system had already been transferred. We assigned a team." "We thought," Henley interrupted. "Do you just think the parachute will open before jumping out of plane?" Silence. The Greek, quietly he muttered. "Jesus." Hanley turned to the next page. Effective immediately, all federal operations are frozen. All contract workflows are flagged as problematic. And we're officially under investigation for failing to implement controls as required by Sector 932. Melissa was on the verge of tears. Jenna was ready to run. Ryan reached for his laptop. "We can fix this. We'll contact Lisa. She'll give us access." "She doesn't have to." Hanley cut him off abruptly. "You fired her. You took away her clearance. You removed her signature without replacing her. She did everything by the book, and you didn't." From across the table, someone whispered, "Wait, was she the lead custodian?" Hanley spun around. "Of course. Why do you think she had higher clearance than me at Vault 41? Because I handpicked her to keep the system running when the contractor went under. She was the key to everything." Ryan sat up slowly. No excuses, no beautiful words, only the knowledge that he pulled the wrong thread, and now everything is unraveling before everyone's eyes. "I didn't know," he said quietly. Henley didn't even look, just shook his head. "You didn't even ask." And he left without saying anything else. No plan, no promise, just walked out, leaving behind a silence that felt like there was no air left in the room. At home, I was drinking my second cup of coffee. The same sweatshirt, the same quiet kitchen. The news in a low voice. The phone lit up again. "Please tell me how to stop this." "Chaika." I didn't answer because they were no longer asking for help, but for a miracle. And miracles are no longer my job. That afternoon, the conference room was like a funeral, only without flowers. Ryan sat at the end of the table, his collar unbuttoned. His eyes darted around like a cornered animal, looking for a way out that doesn't exist. The lawyers were silent, laptops open, but no one was typing. Henley stood at the head of the table, his hands on the surface, face pale. His voice was quiet but dangerous. "Ryan, do you even know what she really did?" "Well, she kept records, internal processes, old documentation." Ryan started. "No," Henley interrupted, shaking his head. "She was the only federally certified custodian of our compliance system. The only one. You fired the signature. You have erased our legal right to work." One of the lawyers whispered and exhaled. "God," Hanley continued, already louder. "Lisa has passed the Contract Integrity Directorate audit, got a Level 3 Roman clearance when the contractor collapsed and no one else could take over the system. I was there when she rewrote the compliance bridge from scratch on old equipment that no one wanted to touch. Do you know why we didn't replace it?" Ryan looked up slowly, startled. "Because they couldn't. Hanley slapped a thick folder with a federal seal on the table. This is her clearance profile. This is not just a folder from the HR department. This is a security contract. And you signed your resignation letter as if you were throwing away an old printer cartridge. Ryan stared at the folder, turning pale as if he had become shorter. I didn't know, he whispered. That's your problem, Henley snapped. You didn't know, you didn't ask. You just assumed she was a quiet worker who pressed buttons while you walked around talking about optimization. We can fix everything. Ryan tried to get up. Call her, offer her the position back. It's too late. Claire from the legal department interrupted. Her role as a custodian was already marked as vacant and confirmed by the federal office of the Comploss. She had completed everything perfectly according to the rules. And since we don't have a backup custodian, the technical director, who had been silent all day, finally added, the system took this as a waiver of responsibility. The blocking was automatic. ULT 40 began the countdown the moment her token was revoked. That is, Hanley frowned. We're done. Unless she comes back herself. Claire replied and signs a new custodian contract. What if we just send a form for restoration? Ryan asked hopefully. It won't help. Teichdeer shook his head. We need her personal biometrics, her face, her typing style on the keyboard. The system knows it's her. It can't be faked. Do you have her number? Hanley asked. We've called 3 times, written, and sent a courier. She's not answering, she said. Claire. Hanley nodded slowly, like a man who had just realized that the ship had already hit an iceberg. He looked straight at Ryan. I gave you the keys to something you didn't understand. Instead of sorting it out, you burned it. I thought she wasn't important, Ryan said quietly. Sometimes, Hanley replied, his voice like a closing door. Quiet people are the only ones that keep a roof over your head. After that, no one spoke anymore. And I read a book at home, not a legal one, not a technical one, but an ordinary novel without abridgments. The phone vibrated with a new voice message from an unknown number. I didn't listen. My work was already done, and no one, not Ryan, not the board of directors, not even Henley, could undo what had already been set in motion. The contract was canceled. Time's up. The roof began to collapse. Thursday at exactly 9 a.m. No sirens, no countdown like in the movies. Just one line of red text on every monitor on 3 floors. Authorization blocked. The role of custodian is vacant. All contract-related systems have been suspended in accordance with federal protocol. And that's all. $240 million in active government contracts have been reset to zero. Financial terminals froze. Purchasing panels went dark. The audit console became unresponsive, showing only that red line, like a death certificate signed with code. Clara tried to make salary payments and was harshly refused. The compliance chain is invalid, and Ryan is missing. Hanley was sitting in the war room with lawyers, the CTO, and 3 sleep-deprived executives when a red message appeared on the big screen. Nobody said a word. The weight of this event fell on me like a fallen body. Then the letters came, one from the Ministry of Defense. From this point on, the company is placed on administrative pause until the custodian status is fully reevaluated. Other from the Federal Logistics Office. We are initiating an independent review of the right to perform contracts under Section 7 of the DEFIS to DEFIS 9B. Please cease all work until further notice. Even the cleaning contract was blocked. Hanley sat motionless, then leaned toward Claire, the lawyer, and quietly asked, Is there still a chance we can get her back? Claire didn't take her eyes off the screen. She doesn't owe them anything. From the moment we formalized her dismissal, she became an ordinary civilian again. She turned to him. She was our official compliance officer. This is exactly what the Feds see now, her name and the lack of a replacement. The silence settled like ashes. At 9:07, Melissa got up from the table, walked out into the hallway, didn't cry, didn't scream, just leaned against the wall and stared at the floor as if the answers might be there. The developer started uploading logs. Financiers count losses. PR posted a tweet about scheduled maintenance, which no one believed. One of the lawyers muttered, We'll be sued until the end of time. And Hanley just stared at the screen, at the flashing red banner, at the ghost of the woman he trusted and shouldn't have handed over to HR. And on the other side of town, in a quiet cafe with black tiles on the floor and an abundance of Descent lamps. I sat by the window with a book. A typical nonsense thriller. Half a cup of coffee was cooling nearby. The phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number, no messages. More vibration and more. I didn't even check, and I knew it. They call because they finally understand. Not out of respect, not out of regret, but out of fear. Fear of the systems I kept afloat, fear of the silence that was left behind. I picked up the phone, held it in my palm for a second, and pressed the power button. The screen went black. And at that moment, it was neither revenge nor resentment. It was easier to end because I wasn't the one who burned the bridge. I simply let them walk through it themselves and watched from afar as the structure they considered unnecessary collapsed under the weight of their own self-confidence. M.